Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to this edition of Get Quick, Get Sick. I am your host, Cryptochronica, and I'm going to teach you how to do both of those things. Today, we're going to talk about making lasers and why you would want to. They are really, really great for spicing up your drum beats and for throwing a dash of spice into big empty spaces that might need a little something, but you don't want to give away too much about your track. You don't want to give away the vocals, you don't want to give away the main melody sound, or you don't want to give away the main chord sound. So you can just throw a laser out into that empty space and get some glitter up on top. And it's great for all kinds of dance genres, everything from EDM to dubstep. So today I'm going to show you how to make the laser maker, and that sounds like this. Oops, what's going on? There we go. So you've got this kind of laser, different pitches, a little bit of different length adjustment, and with just a tiny bit of ping pong delay, this becomes the most interesting instrument that you can use to take up space. So we can do so many different things. Oh, that's a funny noise. Gets really farty there at the end. We can do all kinds of things with this, and I'm going to show you how to turn it into an instrument that is worth using so that you can throw it into your user library and bust that any single time that you need a laser sound. And again, one of the great things about electronic music as opposed to certain other genres like, say, hip-hop or jazz is the use of effects, because effects are really interesting. They're glittery, they're spicy, they're fiery, they're like decoration that other genres of music don't use as much. And so people have come to expect them in electronic music because they're just really flavorful. So it's important to apply all kinds of different effects to your beats to make them really interesting. Okay, cool. Let me get to making this laser noise for you. I'm just having fun. Okay, cool. So I'm going to basically delete this and we're going to build it from scratch. So the first thing that we need to do is get some sort of kick sound. And I like to use kicks because kicks, I think this is the one I used from another track of mine. So I like to use kicks because they are full frequency instruments. They occupy the entire sound frequency range, usually from the very low subregions of 20 or even higher to like 80 hertz all the way up to the top. So I'm going to take a look at this kick and see how much it is occupying. This is all the way from 10,000 all the way down here to the fundamental at 66 hertz. So this kick has all the information that we need. We're going to use that. I am going to consolidate it, throw it into a MIDI channel so that it's put into a simpler. If you right-click your simpler, you can upgrade that to a sampler, which you should do because simplers are the simple version of samplers. There's some use to a simpler, but sampler is a far more versatile instrument in my opinion. And this is something I'm going to do a deep dive on because it is worth knowing in all of its full glorious intricacies. So first things, throw a kick into a sampler, then you right click it, you group that sampler, and we're going to start to map things to these macros that we can make sure that we have full control and turn this into a full macroed instrument that's actually worth saving instead of just doing one simple function. Now that I've thrown that into a simpler, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to free up these tracks because I want to preserve my mind space. I'm going to get rid of this. And by preserving focus, I'm able to dedicate my attention and my focus to other things. And in this case, I want to turn all of my focus to this instrument rack. Let's name it, do ourselves a favor right from the very beginning. We are making the laser maker. And what we have is this, just a kick noise. Cool, kind of what we expected. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pitch envelope on it. We're going to go all the way up to the top. So we have 48 steps that it's going to start at the top, 48 steps and come all the way down. That's going to give us this sort of clicky noise. I'm going to open this up a little bit so it's not just a quick sort of like curve like that, and it's going to be more of a linear motion like a laser would move. It's not completely linear. We could do that too, and maybe we'll map that, but right now I want a little bit of a gentler bend. So we have this noise, and the reason it's not giving us much is because this decay is really long. So as we move this decay around, it becomes more and more of a click. And this is a sometimes it's just great using clicks, like as a backbeat behind your snare or as a backbeat behind your kick. So instead of being like, it's like, it's a really fun trick, especially in glitch hop. Using clicks is like one of the essences of glitch hop. So that's our first macro. We're going to macro that decay to macro 1, and we will call this laser length. It's not sounding like a laser yet. Don't worry, we'll get there in a second. So I'm going to open this up a little bit. So we've got that nice kind of sound. We also don't need this to be all the way open. So I'm going to bring this down a lot because that extreme of 60 seconds is entirely useless. After like 1 second, it starts to sound like that click. So we don't need it to be all the way at 60 seconds. And at 1 millisecond, from 1 millisecond to about 13 milliseconds, it's all kind of the same noise. So let's just have it start at 13 milliseconds. And this way, by shaping our parameters right from the beginning, we're dialing this in a really useful, intuitive, playable sort of manner. Okay, so that's our first thing. Now I'm going to turn on the oscillator and I'm going to introduce a little bit of FM synthesis. Let's open this up all the way so that the FM is completely in it. And I will turn up the volume. In fact, let's map the volume to macro 2, and we will call this laser volume because this will be the primary engine that makes our laser. So we'll have that pretty loud for now. That's cool. It's kind of like a kick hitting a pipe noise. Sweet. So that's the FM synthesis on a sine wave that's making that kind of that pipey sort of metallic noise. You could find all kinds of uses for a sound like that, I'm sure. But let's actually map the type to macro 3 as well, so that we have laser type. So that way, if you don't want that sine wave noise, you can find something else. That's an interesting one. All kinds of things you can do with the different types. So I'm cycling through them through this, and this way when I close this down, I won't have to actually see what I'm looking at. I can just know that I'm finding a different type. Obviously, the white noise type at the very end is going to give you a kind of noisy sound, which can also be useful. That's almost like a hi-hat. Almost a hi-hat noise. Not quite. You'd probably actually get really, really painful on your ears unless you gave it a little bit of reverb to bring it back in the mix and smooth it some. But if you need a white noise sound, there you go. Okay, now let's map this coarse to macro 4 because this coarseness is really interesting, and that will give us a different level of tone for the FM that's going through our kick sample. So at 125 or 0.125, it's really low. At 0.25, it's coming up a little bit, etc. and etc. 1 is where it would be normally. That's just a little bit of FM. But if I want to come up higher, now it's starting to sound really, really lasery. So the laser is actually a new sound in music's lexicon that was discovered in the late 20th century, and it was invented, the laser noise that we identify with like the Star Wars blaster, like pew, pew. That noise came from a very specific sound designer, this guy named Ben Burt, who has worked all throughout Hollywood, worked really closely with Lucas Studios, or Lucasfilm, I guess that's what it's called. And he was responsible for the Indiana Jones soundtracks, for the WALL-E soundtracks, but before that, his big break was Star Wars. Star Wars is such an overarching cultural colossus. We don't even realize how much Star Wars and the sound effects of Star Wars have influenced our thinking about what we imagine a lightsaber or a planet being crumpled by the Death Star. Those noises were built for us before most of us were born. And so when we think about how things sound in a space battle, most of us, our first thought is Star Wars. And all of that is really, really new. So the way Ben Burt discovered the laser noises, he was on a hike one day with his family. And he was like a kid and used to just record sounds for his collection of sound samples. And they came across these wires stretched to like an electrical pole, and Ben banged on the wires with a rock, and the noise that he got was like a and his dad said something like, that sounds like a laser. That sounds like an imaginary laser would sound. And so he recorded it, and then he used it many years later in Star Wars, in the very first one. And it's ironic because honestly, in outer space, it's a still vacuum. There's no air for sound to move through. There's no air for sound to vibrate. So honestly, a space battle would be completely silent. And yet that doesn't make for good cinematography. So they had to introduce something to fill in those kinds of silences. So we live in the digital realm now, and it's much easier to just use a pitch envelope like so, instead of having to record actual metal wires vibrating from long distances to get our laser noises. But we still owe Ben Burt many accolades for all of his hard work in the early 60s and 70s. Okay, cool. So that is our first section of this. We have a kick that can do all kinds of different laser noises. We have different types. We have different coarsenesses. So it can get more lasery or less lasery. We can put different lengths on it so it's more clicky or not. Cool, all kinds of things that you can use this for. But now I really want to step up this instrument so that it's can become rhythmic and do all kinds of other things. So I'm going to go to my MIDI effects. I'm going to bring in an arpeggio. There we go, arpeggiator. I'm going to take it off of sync because I want to be able to play with it in all kinds of unsynced time signatures. So this would be completely connected to the grid. This is not. I'm going to open this guy up to 100 because I don't want just the click tipping through. I don't just want that transient coming through. I want the whole sample to come through. And the first thing I'm going to do is map this to macro 5. That way now I can speed it up and slow it down. But when this is completely down, it's going at absolute fastness, and that's not what I want. When it's completely down, I want this arpeggiator to be off. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to map this to macro 5, to the free rate. We're going to call this laser speed, and I am going to go into my macro parameters, and I'm going to set the arpeggiator to be off when it's down and to come on the moment you turn this up. So right now it's exactly inverted. So I'm going to go back into my macros and I'm going to right click here and I'm going to invert the range. So that way, when it is all the way down, it's completely off. It's silent. It's not affecting the sample at all. But when I come up with it, it's going to start to interact and start to turn on. Chill. Okay, cool. That works. Second thing I wanted to do is let's set these steps to macro 6, so that way we can pick the amount of steps that are introduced in the arpeggiation. So if this is like here, this is just ringing, kind of like a grain. It sounds almost like grain synthesis, like a grain synth. But with the steps, if I come on with those, it'll start to arpeggiate up octaves. So if I go up 1, it's going to arpeggiate up 1 octave. If I go up 2, it'll arpeggiate up 2, blah, blah, blah. So let's try that. Cool, that might be useful. It's not the greatest noise in the world, but it's something that you can use. All right, now I'm going to also bring in a pitch envelope. I'm sorry. A MIDI pitch oscillator, because this way we can start to play with the pitch as well. And I will just map that straight to macro 7, name this MIDI pitch. Chill. Let us start that at 0, but we'll see what happens. Cool. Yeah, all kinds of cool things you can do with the MIDI pitch. I'll get this back to 0. Oh, it's so grainy and awesome. The thing about grain synthesis, again, I'll probably do a video on this at some point in the future. Grain synthesis cuts through the speaker pretty much more than any other synth or any other synthesis type. Additive synthesis and things like Razor is also very, very sharp and it cuts through really clearly. But grain synthesis, because you're literally using grains, it's just so clear and sharp that if you were going to turn this into, if you're going to make like a long sample of this and put it into a sampler and then play that around like a grain synth, essentially, you are going to be able to cut through mixes really, really clearly, which is a cool feature and something that you should learn how to do. So I'll do that later on. Oh, so sharp sounding. That's why I have this down really low in volume as well, because I don't want to harm anybody's delicate ears, myself included. Sweet, those are great effects. You could have that kind of thing on and start up here, and during a breakdown, you're getting all kinds of like releases of energy and decay in tension, which is really great for a breakdown. You could do the reverse if you wanted to build up into a drop as well. Because tension and release is basically what dance music is all about. Okay, cool. So we have this one last macro. Let's find something to do with it so that it's not wasted. I think we could probably put it on the attack, because it would be kind of fun if our laser noise was goes up before it just shoots down. Let me set this, oops, let's set this at 0. I said 0, thank you, Ableton. Okay, I guess you won't do 0. I guess we'll set that at 1. And we'll just pick a laser type. Let me turn up the volume. Let me open it up a little bit. I'm gonna put this back where it's supposed to be. And I guess attack isn't that great of a noise. If this is attacked here. Oh yeah, no, that's kind of fun actually. Okay, cool. So the attack really doesn't start to kick in until about 30 milliseconds. So let's map it there. I'm gonna right control that, map it to macro 8. We're gonna go to 13, or we said 30 milliseconds. So where is the attack? You can click that, it'll highlight it for you. I have terrible vision, so things are hard for me to find. Let's start at 30 milliseconds. And 20 seconds is entirely too much because it's not gonna have an effect if it's open 20 seconds to that extreme. So let's just kind of dial that in. Actually, 12 seconds is a pretty good place for it. It's still having an effect. So yeah, we'll just leave it there. You can also go in and change these later, but now you have the laser maker, super useful instrument. And now let me also take that attack down. Oh, that's the only thing. That's the bummer. Okay, no, so this, I do have to map this so that this attack is all the way closed, because we don't want any attack when it's all the way down. Okay, cool. Okay, much better. Sweet. Call this attack. Sweet. Laser type, laser volume, laser length. Okay, cool. You have all kinds of different lasers here with the arpeggiator, so you can do that creaky door noise. If you have it like this is the famous creaky door noise that's used in front of snares or behind kicks all the time. It sounds like a door is almost opening. It's a very cool trick. Let me throw on a delay and we'll map that in there somehow. Let's either get a simple delay. Oh, they don't call it that anymore, do they? They call it just regular delay now. Oh, Ableton 10. How I love you. Okay, cool. So we'll turn down the dry wet quite a bit. The feedback is probably too long. Nice, that is such a good noise, super useful. I'm gonna take off the linking and we'll do 3/4. Oh yeah, that's fun. And we will play with the timing on both of these so that they're a little early and a little late. And maybe not that late. Chill, and we kind of just want this higher part to be delayed. And I think I want it a lot faster. Okay, whatever, you can dial in your own delay. That's a lot better, that's what I was looking for. But now we have a variety of different lasers, a bunch of different laser types, different courses. Cool, yeah, you can use this for all kinds of effects. I'll just throw that delay in there, and then you can have that with it all. And that will be part of your rack. You can set that however you want. Sweet deals. Okay, last thing about lasers, I'm gonna make a new track and I'm just gonna show you how to make like another classic laser sound. You can use any synth for this, but it's not a sample-based thing. This is actually oscillator-based kind of laser noise. So if I go into my sounds, instruments, let's pull up an operator, which is a form of additive synthesis. Operator is a really, really great, really clear synth. It's just got a reputation for being kind of digital and kind of cold, as a lot of additive synths do. So, take that in stride, use it how you will. Let me just make a C note, because honestly, it doesn't really matter what note we use here. I am going to put on the pitch envelope here, turn that pitch envelope all the way up, and the same kind of thing. I'm going to give it quite a bit of pitch, so 48 is the peak, and we've got this noise. Okay, super lasery. That is something that, again, you could totally put on a delay for and use all over the place. Now, it's kind of just shaping your, just like this. This is a very linear laser noise. Sweet. I'm also going to come down 12 decibels because that's loud as hell. Nice. So you've got that. If you wanted to introduce some of these other oscillators, you could, and they will give the laser a little bit of an overtone, a little bit of a flavor flav. So this routing right here is saying that A, which is the yellow little tab, is being FM synthesized by B, and B is being FM'd by C, and C is being FM'd by D. So this is a linear patch. D affects C, affects B, affects A. So a little bit of volume of B is going to totally change up the sound of A. But we can shift this, and we can put it like that so that they're all coming out completely on their own. D is going directly out without interfering with any of the other ones. B is going completely out with interfering with A, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to go to that routing, at least for this, because I want to introduce just a little bit of laser overtone to this laser. So I'm going to come up one, and course, I guess it can be anything. You don't have to obsess over 1 or 3 or 11 or whatever. Just pick a fucking number and move on with your life. You're trying to free up your thinking. So we're going to do 2, and I'm going to turn up the volume. But we have this one set as a sine wave. So inside this, let me find a different kind of sine wave. We'll do the sine 4-bit, and I'm also going to turn up the fine tuning just ever so slightly, because when you have something that's completely in line and completely tuned, it sounds really, really straight and narrow. But the moment things start to get detuned, they start to widen and they start to take up more stereo space. So just a little bit of detuning like that is going to totally change the sound. So I like that. That's nice. And why don't we introduce some of this? And with this one, we'll put on a saw wave, because saws are super powerful for electronic music. Super powerful. All right, cool. Let's detune that a little bit. Ooh, 33 is a bit much. Let's do something like 15, just a little bit of detuning. And the course at 1 is okay. Oh, that's super dope. Let's hear it in the context of this. You can stretch this guy back out. I don't know if I like the envelope on this. So in these envelopes, I can make each of these things happen a lot shorter. We're going to have this come on. So this has got a slow attack, and this noise is taking a minute to fully develop. We'll have this kind of pluck and then get out of the way. It'll drop 7 decibels right after it hits right in the beginning. And this one is going to stay completely open and unaffected. Actually, I don't like the way that comes on. Cool. So there's basically, that's the idea. Operator is really easy to do this with because it's got this built-in pitch envelope, but so many synths can do that effortlessly. And then operator's also got this really cool time parameter, which is a lot of fun because it'll slow down or speed up the whole sound. So let's put that like all the way slow and all the way fast. And then when you oscillate it, when you move it around, I'm going to map it really quickly just to show you. Oh, goodness gracious, automation. I'm going to do a whole lesson on why automation is the worst and why you should try and avoid it. But just for this example, I'm going to show you what that time automation would do. That wasn't good at all. Never mind. You might not want to use that. And that sounds like a lasery boat in the distance. Okay, yeah. Scratch time. We're not going to play with that. We're just going to leave that at 0. And I will group this into a group for you, and we will call this laser maker operator, laser maker operator, and you can play with that. Cool. Well, I hope to hear a bunch of lasers in your newest compositions because people like the laser sound. So don't be afraid to get experimental and put on phasers. Phasers are great. Reverbs are great. The echo delay in Ableton 10, this Live 10 echo thing is super, super cool. Use some resonators, use some Corpus could work. That might be really, really harsh. Use erosion. That's a good one. Flangers are good. Frequency shifters. You can just go crazy with different effects on these. And as long as you have like a delay to let it occupy a lot of space, if this can last like 4 seconds or 8 seconds in your mix, you can totally, totally fill up a place that would otherwise be a little bit dull and a little bit spiceless. So please use lasers. All right, everybody. I hope this was a useful tutorial, and I will see you I'll see you on the dark side. May the force be with you.